Hey there, friends. Grab a seat, pour yourself something warm, and let's dive into a story that's been rattling around in my head. It's one of those tales that sticks with you, not because it's packed with crazy drama, but because it feels real, like something we all stumble into in our own lives. So, here we go. There was a guy named Samir who lived in a quiet little village tucked between rolling hills and scruffy fields. Samir was in his late 30s, with a scruffy beard and a laugh that could chase away the darkest clouds. He ran a small workshop where he fixed old clocks, the kind with gears and springs that whispered tales of days long past. The villagers knew him as the guy who'd coax a stubborn grandfather clock back to chiming with a big grin, or sit you down with a cup of tea while he tinkered an ancient pocket watch into ticking like it was brand new, all while spinning a yarn about the time he patched up the baker's wobbly cart just before the harvest fair. Life wasn't always easy, money was scarce, and the workshop's roof groaned in the wind, but Samir had this warm glow, like he'd found a secret that kept him grounded. Every day, Samir would rise as the sun slipped over the hills, brew a pot of coffee strong enough to wake a sleepy ox, and shuffle to his workshop. He'd spend his mornings working with clockworks, hands stained with oil, chatting with folks about the harvest or the crisp nights settling in. Kids would pop by after school, pleading with him to fix their granddad's pocket watch so it'd tick again, and he'd do it for a few coins or sometimes just a grin. At night, he'd plop down on his porch with his scruffy dog, Mango, watching the stars peek through the trees while crickets strummed their song. Life was pretty straightforward, and Samir always seemed at peace, like he'd learned how to ride life's waves without losing his light. Then one day, everything took a turn. Samir got a call from the town doctor out of the blue. His younger sister, Bella, had taken a tumble down her cellar stairs while hauling jars to store for winter. She was a single mom with 2 little ones, and now she was laid up with a broken leg and a long road to recovery ahead. The doc said she'd heal in time, but she couldn't work her fields or look after her kids, and her bills were mounting fast. Samir dropped everything to step in, trekking across the village each day to check on her, fetching her kids from the school, and keeping their little home afloat. His workshop started to stumble too. He had less time to fix clocks, customers faded away, and the rent loomed unpaid. Standing in his quiet workshop one evening, surrounded by silent clocks, that glow of his flickered for the first time. He wasn't loud or sour, just still, like he wasn't sure where to turn. So here's where it gets real. Samir didn't let it sink him. The next morning, he got up, brewed his coffee and set to work. He carved out a few hours to keep the workshop open, then spent the rest with Bella and her kids. He'd bring them soup warmed up on his shop stove, patch up their wobbly chairs, and even showed his nephew how to wind an old clock just so. Neighbors caught wind and pitched in, some dropped off bread for Bella, others nudged folks to bring their clocks to Samir when he was around. Bit by bit, things evened out, Bella's leg mended, the workshop ticked back to life, and Samir kept rolling, cracking jokes and smiling like the burden hadn't broken him. What held him together wasn't a big win or a heap of money, though that'd have been handy. It was something softer, something he kept close. Samir had this way of spotting the good, even when life weighed heavy. When Bella's accident struck, he'd talk about how her kids' laughter still bounced around the house. When the workshop fell quiet, he'd savor the chirp of a sparrow or the glint of frost on the window. A late bill? He'd chuckle and say it was a chance to make do with what he had. He wasn't brushing off the tough stuff, he felt it deep, but he chose not to let it rule him. Until the end, Samir's workshop became more than just a fix-it spot. It turned into a gathering place where people lingered, swapping stories over tea or watching the sunset gild the hills. Bella got back on her feet, her kids grew steadier, and the village leaned into them. Samir didn't just fix clocks, his story patched up the hardships of life for those around him too. Folks started calling it Samir's place, not because it was fancy, it wasn't, but because it felt like a shelter. People would leave with more than a working clock, they'd carry a bit of Samir's quiet strength, a reminder that life's bruises don't have to dim your shine. Samir would still sit on his porch with Mango, stars twinkling above, and that glow of his burned brighter than ever. The accident had shaken things, but Samir stood tall, showing that happiness isn't about what hits you, it's about what you choose to hold on to. So, here's the heart of it, friends. Samir's story isn't about a guy who coasted through life unscathed. It's about a regular soul who got rocked by a hard blow and still found a way to smile, not by dodging the pain, but by chasing the good stuff, even if it was small. Maybe it's the smell of coffee brewing, the click of a clock springing to life, or the glow of a fire on a cold night. Life's a mixed bag. Some days are golden, others are gray, but Samir showed us you can keep your head up if you seek out those little joys hiding in plain sight. What about you? What little things lift you when life gets heavy? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what keeps your fire going. And if this story tugged at your heart, hit that like button and subscribe so we can keep these stories flowing. Samir's out there fixing clocks and lifting spirits, and I'm here cheering for you to find your own light. Here's to choosing joy, no matter what. Catch you next time.